Okay, so we are now talking about central tendency, and this will go with your book under the chapter of central tendency. So what we're going to be talking about today is central tendency is basically made up of mean, median, and mode. So what we're going to do today is we're going to define each of these, we're going to compute them, and then we're going to apply them. So first, let's define central tendency. So central tendency can be defined as the central value for a sample distribution of values or scores. And this is found by, again, mean, median, and mode. And so there are three types of central values that we will be discussing in this lecture. The first is mean. This is the one that's used most often and most frequently, especially within the social sciences. And this is simply defined as the average of scores. So if you know how to calculate an average, you know how to calculate a mean. It's the exact same thing. Median, on the other hand, is the middle value or values in a list of scores. If the list of scores is evenly numbered, meaning there are 4 scores, 6 scores, 8 scores, so on, it would be the average value of the two middle scores. The mode, on the other hand, is the most frequently occurring value in a list of scores, and there is actually more than one mode. More than one mode is possible. So if you have a list of scores, for example, and there are 3 18s and 3 scores of 21, and those are the most frequent, the mode would actually be 18 and 21. And we'll get into how to find these in a second. So now we've just defined each of these, mean, median, and mode. So now we're going to go on to computing each of these. So to compute central tendency, we are going to have a running example here. And our running example is going to be student age. And the student ages here are, for Mr. Blonde, 21, Mr. White, 46, Mr. Orange, 18, Mr. Pink, 16, Mr. Blue, 18, Nice Guy Eddie is 36, and Mr. Brown is 20. And we'll use these numbers throughout the rest of this lecture. So in order to compute the mean, what we're doing is adding all of these scores together and dividing by the number of scores. And this is signified by this equation here, where m equals the mean, so the average. E, or sigma, the Greek symbol sigma, it means to sum. X is the sample data, or the scores. And n is the number of scores. So we're summing the sample data and dividing that by the number of scores. And so here is the calculation to find the average, or find the mean, of the student ages in this sample here. So again, here's the equation here, and I will actually give you about a minute and let you calculate it on your own. And then I will show you the answer. Okay, it's been about a minute, and if you came up with the answer of 25, then you are correct. The average score in this group of students is 25 years of age. Now, finding the median is quite a bit different than finding or calculating the mean, and this doesn't take nearly as much math. So to find the median, and remember again, the median is the middle value in a list of scores. So here on our right, we have a list of scores, right? So here is our list of scores. And let's put these scores in order. So we'll list the ages in order. So we have 16, 18, 18, 20, 21, 36, and 46. So we have 7 numbers here. So the middle value in this list of scores is what our median is going to be. Now I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that and come up with your own answer before I reveal the answer here. Okay, so if you came up with 20, you're correct. 20 is the middle value in this list of scores, and that is the median. So, oh, I put 21. I apologize. That's 20. Now the mode is quite a bit different, or excuse me, it's a little different here. And the mode is the most frequently occurring value in a list of scores. And again, let's list the ages in order. And so we have 2 18s here. So the median is 18 because 18 is the most frequently occurring score in this list of scores. And as I mentioned before, if 2 scores are the most frequently occurring in a list, those 2 would both be the median. Or, excuse me, the mode. So now we've defined each of the 3 central tendencies, mean, median, and mode. We've computed each of them, and now we're going to apply them. And so the application here, and this applies to the types of scales. So remember last lecture we talked about the various types of scales, right? We talked about nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio scales. And so the mean should be used only with interval or ratio scales. So this includes age, GPA, temperature, etc. And it should not be used with nominal or ordinal data. And the reason is, if you think about that, if we have nominal data, so if we have categories, for example, and category 1 is, let's say a category of race, right? So we have Black African American, we have White Caucasian, we have Latino. So we have these various categories. It doesn't make quantitative sense to create an average of the categories. You can't have an average on race, right? That doesn't make sense. Similarly, you couldn't have an average of political affiliation, for example. So there's other ways to calculate that. So what we want to do is use continuous scales or interval or ratio scales and use mean to calculate central tendency for those scales. Median should be used when the data are ordinal. So when the data are ordered in terms of category and there's a rank order there. So age categories, for example, would be a good way to use median. And then mode should be used when the data are nominal. So again, political affiliation, race. It's good because this gives us an idea of who is the most frequently occurring group of people within a sample. And so we'll just do a quick example here. So say we have our standard example that we've been using. We have the ages of students within a classroom. And so I just want to ask you a simple question. What type of scale is this? And I'll give you a few seconds to identify this. So if you guessed ratio, you are correct. This is a ratio scale, and it's because it has a meaningful 0 point. Now, which measure of central tendency is most appropriate when we're trying to find the center of this number of scores, or these values? Okay, if you guessed the mean, or you found the mean, you are correct. The mean is the most appropriate use in this situation. and it's because this is a ratio scale. So what type of scale is this? So in this one, we have age, instead of having specific ages, we have age categories, right? We have 21 to 30, 41 to 50, 15 to 20, 15 to 20 again, 31 to 40. So what type of scale is this? Okay, this is an ordinal scale, and this is an ordinal scale because people are put into categories that can be rank ordered, right? 21 to 30 is going to be less than 41 to 50, for example. It's a rank order of categories, as I said. So which measure of central tendency is most appropriate for this? And it's going to be the median. Again, ordinal scales, median is best used for this type of scale, for an ordinal type of scale. And then finally, we have age categories here, but they're not quite as ranked, right? So what type of scale is this? So this is a nominal scale, right? So it nominates people into different categories. Now, as I don't know about you, but these categories don't necessarily make quantitative sense. You can't really rank order these, right? So it nominates people into different categories that cannot be necessarily rank ordered. So which measure of central tendency is most appropriate for this? So the mode is the most appropriate, and that sort of identifies who is the most frequently occurring person within these categories. So just to go over, we defined each of the central tendencies, mean, median, and mode. We computed them, and then we applied them. So at the end of this, you should be able to define and answer the question of what is mean, median, mode, how are each calculated or found, and which should be used for various types of data.